And that's what makes us Americans. It's all that makes us Americans, so don't tell me there's no rule book, and don't nod at me like that, you son of a bitch.
Hello and welcome to episode 86 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a show that's all about talking about movies. I am Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Kristy, Puchko, and Angie.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
So we've got two topics for you today. Our hot topic is New York Comic Con, which is happening right now in New York City. And then we're going to jump into our full review of the week, which is Bridge of Spies. So first up, Kristy, you are going to take New York Comic Con.
All of New York Comic Con.
I wish you were
Comic-Con,
taking all of New York Comic Con.
It normally gets clocked for not being quite as big as San Diego, but real figures, guys, it actually has the same amount of people, just in a smaller space. So you think Comic Crud San Diego is bad? Pfft, come to New York and see our Javits Center, jerks. Anyway, Perri and I are going to be all over Comic-Con all weekend doing various things. I am actually mostly just doing press ops, which is really exciting because it means I get to avoid the mayhem of a lot of the panels and just enjoy the fun write-ups of them later. But it's cool. If everything goes according to plan, so, knock on wood, I'm going to get to talk to the guys who made Venture Brothers, which I'm a big fan of. I already got to talk to some of the cast of 12 Monkeys. I'm supposed to talk to people from the X-Files. It's going to be a really exciting weekend, which all my coverage is going to be on Comic Book Resources and spin-off, so look for that. Comic-Con New York is kind of awesome because, one, we don't have to be in the middle of nowhere, like a place we don't know, so we get to go home at night. But two, it's cool to just get to see kind of everybody wave their freak flag in New York. And my favorite part of Comic-Con New York is probably actually walking to and from the subway after and before, because you get to see all these people in costume but out of context. And like last night on the train, I was coming back, and I was actually coming back at 42nd Street, which is a little further away. And this girl turned to me and said, do you know if the R train is coming here? Because I really am tired of looking like an idiot in public. And I turned to her and said, you're not an idiot, you're Sansa Stark. And she was like, thank you. But like, apparently she had been getting a lot of like weird looks on her way back from Comic-Con and was like frustrated. But she had the wig, she looked amazing.
I live just close enough where it's like a mix of business people and then a mix of people with Comic-Con badges and costumes. That is actually one of my favorite parts. I don't really like New York Comic-Con, though, to be honest. I mean, you go to San Diego and it's like the big difference between New York Comic-Con and San Diego is kind of like exactly what you said. New York Comic-Con loves to say, oh, we're getting bigger and bigger every year, but it's still almost entirely contained to the Javits Center, except this year they added Hammerstein Ballroom, which is actually where I'm going to be most of the time.
Yeah, in Madison Square, right? Because they're doing the Walking Dead thing there.
I will be there as well. But the problem with New York Comic Con to me is it doesn't feel like as much of a community as San Diego. Like when you go to San Diego for Comic Con, San Diego, like the city or like the downtown area, completely transforms into Comic Con. It's like no matter where you go, if you're in the convention center or outside on the streets, everybody is like there for the same reason. And, unless you're in the Javits Center sweating to death and trying to like maneuver your way around, it's not quite like that elsewhere. But, I'm kind of excited for some of the stuff I'm covering. I'm actually not doing any movies the entire time I'm here. I'm only doing TV. Like today, I have the USA panel, which is Mr. Robot and Colony. And tonight, I'm really looking forward to tonight because The Walking Dead is hosting a big fan premiere of the season 6 premiere in Madison Square Garden. And apparently there's going to be props there that you could take pictures with before. They're going to screen the premiere episode, and then there's going to be a big Q&A after.
And I mean, I feel like that actually shows how crazy the Walking Dead crowd gets here, is that they have Madison Square Garden. Because like in years past, 3 years ago, I was in line for the Walking Dead panel, and I had to text my editor and tell them we didn't get a press pass because reasons, but I had to text them and tell them there was no way I was getting in, and then I hung out because I thought maybe, just maybe, and literally the people in line around me are like, they can't keep us out. I mean, look at us. There's hundreds of us. We could just rush those security guards. What are they going to do? They don't have guns. And I was like, I am not dying at Comic-Con, and I left.
That would have been a great
Dying
story,
for
though.
a Walking Dead panel. Can you imagine your parents having to explain to their friends how they lost their eldest daughter?
I like to think my parents would lie and just say I OD'd or something.
I do hope that
That's
the
less
Walking Dead
shameful.
panel tonight is a little more of like a spectacle,
Yeah.
Because like every single time I've ever covered a Walking Dead panel, it's like, a pretty bland Q&A where they just tease kind of what we already have seen in the trailers, and then it's just 500 like people of like all different sexes, ages, races, whatever, lining up to say, "I love you, Norman Reedus. Can I sit on your lap, please?"
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure New York Comic Con last year, a little girl got up on stage and sat on his lap.
Guys, I've met Norman Reedus and he was nice, but I don't get it. I don't understand this like, oh, Norman Reed, like he was lovely, he was fine. I don't know, I don't get it, whatever. But yeah, that's so Comic-Con. Look for my stuff on Comic Book Resources, look for Perri's stuff on Collider, and it's happening, guys. Hopefully I'll post some fun cosplay pics on Twitter too. I haven't gotten around to that yet.
Yeah, I'll do my best, but I don't know. I'll try. I'll post pictures tonight from Walking Dead.
I'll probably post Steven Universe stuff because they're my favorites.
I'm cool with that. All right. So now we're up to our review, and it's Bridge of Spies, and Angie's going to read the beloved IMDb synopsis.
All right. Try to give me 2 seconds after I read the synopsis to breathe before you go on about how inaccurate it is, because I feel like you're going to. An American lawyer is recruited by the CIA during the Cold War to help rescue a pilot detained in the Soviet Union. Technically not wrong.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to tear that apart.
Like, it's technically not wrong, but it makes it sound like he's like going in on like a superhero mission, like he's Captain America or something. When actually what happens is that he has been representing this Russian spy or Soviet spy that was captured in the U.S. and they want him to go to the CIA wants him to go to East Berlin to negotiate a prisoner exchange because the Soviets have one of the American spies.
Yes. It's a movie of a lot of white guys talking in rooms in suits. Oh, Perri, it occurs to me, maybe the business people you thought were in Times Square are actually just Bridge of Spies cosplay.
Oh, it's totally possible. I would buy that. If I saw anybody doing Bridge of Spy cosplay, I'd laugh in their face. And I actually liked this movie.
All right. So it's directed by Steven Spielberg, and so as Kristy points out, it's one of his favorite subgenres: white guys talking in a room about the future of the world. And it's not a very good example of it, honestly. I thought that it was kind of boring. I don't know. It's one of the problems is that like the Cold War it's kind of a, so you have this environment that's like very paranoid where you're like never sure what's going on and like people are kind of distrustful of each other and like that kind of thing. And then from that murk emerges Tom Hanks, who is actually basically Captain America just without the shield because he's just this paragon of goodness and he's just like this perfect man. And I mean, it's Tom Hanks, so I still liked him and I still enjoyed watching him and I still had fun watching him. But just as a movie, it just kind of felt kind of thin. It's kind of like the problem that we've talked about with a lot of biopics where it seemed like they are so invested in building up the hero that they don't really, you don't really feel like you got to know them that well.
Well, to me, it was thin in the sense that it felt like the commercial version of this story. Like, Tom Hanks' character is just the ultimate golden boy. He is so perfect in every sense. There isn't a single bad thing about him. So the entire way through the movie, he's presented with all these situations, and whereas you should be like, okay, like, how is he going to maneuver his way through this one? What's he going to choose? Like, between A and B, you always know what route he's going to take, and you always know that he's going to come out on top. So there's not half as much expense as there should be.
I think you guys make a good point, because essentially what you're saying is the protagonist has no arc. He is a good guy the whole way through, and there's no growth for him. It's just him stepping into this fish out of water situation where he goes from being an insurance lawyer to basically negotiating spy exchange. And like my problem with the film is basically that it feels like 4 movies kind of shoved together, and that really started bothering me. Like his movie where it starts off as this like this jaunty like lawyer drama, I really like the first section where it's him defending the Russian spy, and the Russian spy doesn't look worried, and he keeps saying stuff to him like, you might get the death sentence. Does that not bother you? And the Russian spy's reoccurring joke is, would it help? And I thought that was funny every time. And I like that. I liked the weird friendship that they started to have, despite the fact that they're working on very different ends of things. And that was all really interesting. I liked the way they folded his family into it. But then all of a sudden we start cutting to this like pilot who is just like gonna take photographs of Russia, and like we don't get to know that character at all. Francis Powers, like he is a plot point. He's not a character.
Exchanging the Soviet spy for.
Yeah, and the thing is, it really just felt to me like I was channel surfing between 2 different movies. They didn't feel connected, and then all of a sudden they're very connected, but it didn't feel earned. And then they start adding in this stuff about the student, because that's the thing is like there's also an American student who the East Germany has. And like I didn't care about that kid either because we're not spending any time with these characters. They're symbols, they're not characters. And so then when it comes to the big fruition of like the bridge of spies and this exchange, like I wasn't invested the way I feel like the movie expects me to be. And that was a bummer. Though I should say that I saw it in with like a lot of the public and they seem to be really enjoying it, but I honestly think it's mostly Tom Hanks because there was a teenager behind me who, and I tweeted about this, flat out guffawed every time Hanks talked. Like he was having the best time, and I feel like this movie is supported largely on Tom Hanks' star power, and so I think it'll do fine.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that it works because Tom Hanks is so, charismatic. Like, he kind of just goes from meeting to meeting, kind of like, he's like manipulative, but he's like a good person. He just kind of knows how to get what he wants and doesn't back down. And like, it's fun watching Tom Hanks kind of like use verbal trickery to get what he wants. Like, I enjoyed that part. But yeah, as you said, there's no arc. Yeah.
Well, the best part of the movie is the first half of the movie where it's just the two of them. And that actor who's playing
Mark Rylance.
Mark Rylance, he's fantastic. He's like one of those guys that doesn't even need to say anything, but like he's got these looks on your face that like pulls you in, and it's kind of a fun guessing game trying to figure out, whether he really is a spy, what he's capable of, how much of a threat he really is, and all of that. And when you see that opposite what Tom Hanks is doing, it kind of further highlights the movie's biggest problem. But I will agree that the two portions of the movie with the pilot feel like insanely disconnected. And holy shit, they really needed to give that, what's his name? Austin Stoll more to do, because...
Is that the pilot?
That's the
pilot.
pilot.
They show him in like, almost like a negative light. Like,
yeah.
I thought he was a jerk, and I couldn't even quite tell if he was almost like trying to not, do I wasn't sure if he was trying to get out of it or if he really was going to blow up the plane.
There's a real disservice done to his character because we just don't know.
I couldn't really figure out what Tom Hanks's deal was and what the right move was to make once he was captured. It's like, was it even right for him to pull him out,
I mean, I think that's actually kind of the idea, because that's, as I understand it, that's kind of what happened in real life. Like, they did the prisoner exchange, they brought that guy back, and then that guy was kind of treated as a pariah because people were like, you should have killed yourself rather than got captured. Like, they were very suspicious of his motives and suspicious of how he survived and suspicious of what he gave up. So I think that's by design. However, I don't think the movie does a good job of explaining those themes or digging into them or really doing anything other than kind of like vaguely alluding to them.
Well, the movie doesn't really even... I mean, it barely scratches the surface of that idea. I think if they had made that hit a little harder, I would have appreciated it more. But then I also had a major problem with the student that they bring in, who also is insanely underdeveloped, and I can't really... Like, I didn't really care if Tom Hanks's character got him back or not.
No, I didn't either.
Like, I think I was almost just rooting for Tom Hanks because I was rooting for Tom Hanks.
Exactly.
I didn't really, care for what he was doing. And also, I couldn't look past the fact that what he was doing seemed insanely reckless to me and almost, selfish.
The very quickly they established that the government wants the pilot back, and then Hanks is like, well, what about the student? And the government's like, we'll deal with the student later. Like, he doesn't fucking know any government secrets. We don't really... He's not priority. And Hanks keeps pushing for both. And it's like, because that's the Hanks thing to do. But yeah, it doesn't... I don't really get why he feels the need to get both. And honestly, I kind of... This is going to sound so victim blamey, but pardon me. But the fucking student... What were you doing? Like, he was trying to sneak someone across the wall, and then he got caught. Yeah, dude. Fucking read the room. Well, his
thing was like, I'm American, I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And ultimately,
but then
he
also
was
acted
right.
like a dick and was like, don't touch my research. And I was like,
It's
economics
actually...
student.
It's actually the same exact thing with the pilot and him. They both know what they're getting themselves into, and it's essentially their fault in a way that they got... it's not his fault that the plane got shot down, but he put himself in that plane.
They
and
both
the
put
student
themselves at
tried
risk,
to walk across the wall, so...
And it's like, well, one of them did it for country. Like, the pilot did it because he was part of the CIA and whatever. The other one did it, I guess, for his girlfriend. Like, again, a relationship so undercooked that I don't know how to describe it and don't really care. Honestly, they kept cutting to the pilot and to the student, and I kept getting them confused because, yes, I get it. You're both tall, sad-looking white guys. there's just not enough distinction, and it's disappointing to me because like we got so much beautiful character development early in the film, even down to like the assistant to Tom Hanks's character for the case who we never see again.
But a lot of the people in Tom Hanks's life kind of disappear halfway through the movie. Like, for example, one thing that the movie did really poorly was showing how this affects his family. So his family, naturally, not surprisingly, very understandably, are like, can you, like, not do this? This is gonna put us all in danger. Mm-hmm. And indeed, at one point, their teenage daughter's, like, chilling at home, and then someone shoots a gun into the house. She almost gets killed. And you know, like normally I feel like a dad whose teenage daughter almost got killed because he just had to do too good a job at his job would be kind of shaken and be like, oh my God, what am I getting into? Like, you know, why am I putting my family through this? Is it really worth it? And then you would see them kind of either back out or justify why it's still worth it to them and justify to the family. In this one, he just looks kind of pissed off, and then it doesn't really come up again. Like, just stuff like that.
They also completely forget about the whole thing with the assistant and whatever was going on between the assistant and the daughter, which I was really interested in at the point, and then all of a sudden, like, poof, that was gone.
Yeah. It does feel like I think Kristy's right. It feels like they mashed together a bunch of movies and in the process had to lose a bunch of stuff. I want to talk about one thing that bothered me that's not a filmmaking thing, but more of a political thing. Not to get too politicky, but one thing that kind of bugged me was the difference between how they portray German and Soviet prisons and the difference between how they portray American prisons, because the Germans and the Soviets, basically, you see them treat their respective American prisoners like terribly. Like the Soviets are, you know, they're torturing their prisoner to get information from him, and then the other guy, the one that's been caught by Germany, is like in a prison cell so cold that you can see his breath, and they both look like they're like on the verge of dying, you know, pretty soon. The other guy, the Russian prisoner that's being held in America, he's held in relative comfort. He's still in jail, but he gets to, like, paint. He gets to, like, have a radio and cigarettes, and he gets to, like, hang out and, like, have long, thoughtful conversations with Tom Hanks. And I just feel like, you know, I'm not saying that those are not accurate portrayals of how prisons were. I don't know. I wasn't there, and I don't know history well enough to say. But I do feel like in a day and age where we know the way America treats political prisoners, and you know, in a day and age where we know America has a huge problem with incarceration and how they treat the people that they have jailed, it just rang really hollow to me. It just rang so false.
Well, that's the thing. I think this is a dad movie. Like, my dad would love this. It's sort of about war. It's sort of about, you know, well, it's a lot about America. And that's fine, but it doesn't feel like, you know, it's fucking Spielberg. Like, I expect more thought and more, you know, chances being taken with this than is here, and that really disappoints me. I liked it okay, but it's over 2 hours long, and there's no fucking reason for that.
Oh, no, it's way too long. It's not like, I wasn't ever like, oh my God, I'm so bored, I need this to end right now, but at the end of 2 hours, I was like, they could have cut half an hour from that, and, you know, it still wouldn't have been a better movie, but it would have been more like, you know, a more efficient use of time.
I think that they could have trimmed it down for sure, but I will say I wasn't bored at all. And I actually thoroughly enjoyed the movie while I was watching it. Like, this isn't the kind of movie this should be, but I would probably call it a sit back, relax, and enjoy the show kind of thing, which is not, I mean, this should have had depth. We're talking about a negotiator here. I mean, half the fun of this kind of movie and, like, what would make it so deep is to be in that thought process with him and, like, feel the weight, like, pulling you one way or the other and the pressure of the situation. You don't get any of that at all.
No, you never think he's actually at risk. It's just about sitting back,
watching Tom Hanks make the decisions and then see what the repercussions are. Yeah. And in that respect, I thoroughly enjoyed it. But then, you know, you could say you're enjoying it while you're watching it, but the second I walked out after and I started to talk about certain things that happened in the movie, I'm like, oh, you know, that didn't really make sense. That decision wasn't really justified. Like, why is he risking so many lives for these things? Why does he care so much about it? And I just had like 5 million questions after, which kind of took away from how much I enjoyed what I had just seen.
So do we think this movie has Oscar chances?
I think it's going to have Oscar chances no matter what, just because it's Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Do I think it deserves anything Probably not. I mean, the cinematography in it is pretty gorgeous, though.
It is beautiful cinematography.
There's a couple shots where it feels like the cinematographer had like a heavy hand on the camera, where shots like felt like a little too forced, like in terms of like, you know, tilts and pans and certain movements. It's like I can feel those
angles, yeah.
Yeah, and like I mean, one of the first shots in the movie too is that shot of Mark Rylance's character, and it's like a shot of him in the mirror, then a shot of him, then a shot of the painting, and I'm like, you thought that was just so clever, didn't you?
I remember thinking the exact same thing when I saw it. I'm kind of with Perri. Like I can see it getting some awards buzz because of who's involved. I don't think it would be getting that much if it weren't for those people being involved. I don't think it'll get a ton of attention though, because it's still early in the season and there's a lot of stuff coming. So I think there's also a good chance it'll kind of just get buried under some stuff.
That's kind of my hope. It's not a bad movie. It's just like I'm honestly just tired of a movie being a period piece about white men overcoming adversity being Oscar fodder.
Hey, better this than Black Mass, right?
Yes.
Well, that's looking on the bright side, isn't it?
Yeah, this is better than Black Mass. I guess that's something.
That's a pull quote right there.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm actually going to recommend this. I'm going to recommend it, but I'm also going to recommend you don't think too hard on it after.
I'm going to not recommend it. I don't recommend that people avoid it. I just don't think it's worth going out of your way to see.
But it's Spielberg, and we're not going to get another Spielberg movie for like 2-3 years.
Yeah, so go back and watch a different Spielberg movie, a better one. Even Lincoln was better.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
agree
like
with that.
Lincoln.
I don't think this is a movie I think people need to see in theaters. There's nothing inherently cinematic about it that like demands being seen in a big screen. And honestly, if you get an audience like I got, they're just going to be talking through the whole damn thing. And like they were engaged, but like literally like repeating lines, literally being like, "Who's that guy?" Like I was just like admittedly, that did not help my affection for this movie and did make it feel longer. So yeah, I would say this is probably fine for like a VOD choice on a Sunday afternoon.
That makes sense to me.
Alrighty, so that is a wrap on episode 86 of Popcorn and Prosecco. You guys know the deal. Please go to iTunes where you can subscribe, and you could also rate and comment. We have our website, popcornprosecco.com. We are on Twitter at popcornprosecco. Please like us on Facebook as well, and then all three of us are all over the internet. Angie, you want to go first?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at AJHAN, and I write for slashfilm.com.
Kristy?
I'm at Kristy Puchko on Twitter, and I write all over the internet, but you can find my career highlights at decadentcriminals.com.
And you can catch my writing at collider.com, and my Twitter handle is Nemiroff. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Do you never worry?
Would it help?